Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. Lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you.
Nelson Mandela made a mistake in Robben Island that costed the foundations of South Africa. The time has come to undo that which Nelson Mandela ignorantly entered in, not knowingly. It is time to unroot all the dedication to the Luciferian cult in this country. The surrendering of the government and the people of South Africa to this covenant that was done through blood in Robben Island. They said indeed that blood will be shed in Robben Island, and the law says, I will undo it. The law says, I will undo it, and I will not allow them to remain in this nation. In 1989 were the conversations that happened coming from all the way from Europe as they landed in 1989 in the winter of June in Robben Island in order to say they will make a covenant, and this shall be the covenant that will propel the entire South Africa into a direction that which nobody had actually agreed on when they had prayed for South Africa.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. Well, this is probably the most explosive, incredibly important live stream that Loving Life TV has ever put to air. And I want to tell you why. Because we're talking about what is actually happening, not just in South Africa, but around the world. There are three levels of information. The first is information that the people who are trying to run the world do not want you to know. The second is where something that they don't want you to know leaks out, and they've got to fabricate a story or put in a red herring to try and distract you from that inconvenient reality. And the third level, this little one, is the bullshit that the fake mainstream media put out there when it comes to things that are happening behind the scenes at a political, governmental control level. And this is exactly how the World Economic Forum and their Davos meetings work. You got all the billionaires coming together, you got all these so-called leaders of different countries coming together, and they sit down there and they formulate your future. It's got nothing to do with democracy. It's all about self-interest. Now, in part 1 of this series with Jeff Koorbanally, you heard how the pension funds under the PIC have basically been used to enrich the ANC elite using dormant accounts and the profits from those dormant accounts. And totally involved in this is the Rupert family. Remember, they've got big banking interests in South Africa, so they have a lot of clout. Now, in this part 2 series, you won't really see Jeff Koorbanally at all, because I'm going to be using the actual screen to display information which I think is incredibly important. And we're going to be starting off in this particular live stream with the original bank statements of Ramaphosa's CR17. Now, you'll see them scrolling very fast across the screen. You'll see huge amounts of money being put in by, in particular, one trust, and I highlight that trust. And we're not sure who owns that trust, but I've got a very good idea. And not only that, but a lot of the people who are actually beneficiaries of the money that's coming through that trust. And this is in the lead up to the presidential election, where Ramaphosa stood against Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. And of course, he won by less than 200 votes. Well, the big question is, or the elephant in the room is, was Ramaphosa bought? I think when you see the bank statements that flow through while I'm talking to Jeff in the first 10-15 minutes of this live stream, I think you'll understand that the ANC are completely bought by not white monopoly capital, but by the Rupert family. Which brings me to the other extremely important point. And that is the fact that if you Google SEC Republic of South Africa, you'll see that South Africa is actually a registered corporation at Wall Street. It's not a country. It's a registered corporation, which means that everybody living in South Africa is basically an employee of that corporation, because it's a country. And my understanding is that the CEO of the registered company known as South Africa is one Johan Rupert. Now, when you listen to what Jeff talks about here in this live stream, you'll start to understand how National Treasury in South Africa has been captured. As I say, not by white South Africans, but by one family, the Rupert family. So when we talk about white monopoly capitalism, we're not talking about people that you know walking the streets in South Africa who happen to be white. We're talking about a particular family based in Stellenbosch. They're the head of the mafia. We're talking about the Johan Rupert family. They control South Africa. They manage the ANC. They're the ones who said, after the riots in Durban in July, to Ramaphosa and the ANC, if you guys don't get this sorted, we're going to stop funding you. That wasn't a threat. That was basically a publicly... It was a mistake. They should never have said that, because it reflected the reality of what's going on in South Africa, that this is not a democratic country. It's run by a particular very, very wealthy family in South Africa, the Rupert family. And when it comes to Ramaphosa being elected president, well, in the first part of this live stream, I'm going to be playing the audio tape of our discussion, or my discussion with Jeff, first 10 to 15 minutes, where you will hear, or you will see rather, the actual bank statements of Cyril Ramaphosa's CR17 bank account, which have never been published before. And I'm going to be putting a link below this video where you can download the PDF, which is a complete bank statement of CR17. And let me make this quite clear, that during this 13 to 15 minute intro where I just literally scroll through the bank statements, and you'll see millions of rands going into this bank account and millions of rands going to, or in smaller portions, going out to people clearly buying favors. This is how corrupt the Ramaphosa presidency is. And when it comes to the BRICS countries meeting in South Africa next month, they should be thinking very hard about this, because Ramaphosa is a stooge. He's basically a front for the Rupert family, who in return are a front for the World Economic Forum. And I say this without any shadow of a doubt, because guess who is a young global leader at the World Economic Forum, which is a front for the one world government? Cyril Ramaphosa. And not only that, but his brother-in-law, Patrice Motsepe, is actually on the board of the World Economic Forum. And you will understand when you watch this live stream why he is so tied up with this criminal situation in South Africa, where pension monies have been set aside and abused and used. And of course, now we have this project called Project Spiderweb. And we name and shame the people in South Africa right now who are playing major roles, or who have played major roles in Project Spiderweb. And Project Spiderweb, just for the record, is basically taking the ANC and putting them underneath a control management. So the ANC are basically just doing what they're told by the Rupert family, who in return are working for the Rothschilds and of course the one world government. So when you go to vote in 2024 and you vote in the ANC, you've actually voted in a one world government. That's what you've done. That's the bottom line of this entire live stream. Here it comes. As I say, you won't see Jeff, but you will see information crossing your screen. And as I say, the PDF of CR17's bank statements is below this video in the description. You can download it for yourself. It is so long that I couldn't put it all out in under 15 minutes. This is called corruption and deception at a grand scale. And that's why South Africa is going through the chaos it is, because you got the mafia running the country. Here we go. I'm going to get Jeff on and we'll get started. Please remember to register on lovinglifetv.com to be kept informed. And let's get this show going. Hi Jeff, good to speak to you again.
Hi, good morning, Scott. Likewise, good to speak to you again.
And I just need to tell everybody that Jeff has decided not to come on camera, but it's the information that he's providing that we need to concentrate on here, because this is mind-blowing stuff. Now, Jeff, just to kick off this live stream, how did you become involved in this? What's the background to you becoming involved in this the scandal involving the PIC and pension funds?
Yeah. Well, Scott, like I said in my previous interview, I was appointed by the Suti family in 2009 to investigate and search the missing inheritance. So I got involved in the investigation based on search and pursuit of the Suti estate inheritance. And as a result, that led me into going into various areas of search and came across a lot of controversial stuff, including how the money was then retained and who was responsible to keep the money in custody, which was then Public Investment Corporation. But the money was first discovered to have been kept with Absa Group.
Right. Right. Now, look, I find it extraordinary the amount of deceit and greed of people who are incredibly wealthy when it comes to stealing off just people who are battling just to feed themselves. And you mentioned the involvement of Absa Bank. We'll get back to what these people have been up to shortly. But tell us about your involvement versus Absa Bank.
Yeah. Yes, Scott. Well, Absa Bank became an entity of interest because the person that I had taken over from, who had been trying to pursue the claim of the Suti, I found out that he was having several secret meetings with Absa. And I needed to understand what was going on within himself and Absa.
Right.
That revealed a lot of things of the people involved, how the matter even became to be part of Absa, which started in the Western Cape, basically by various companies. Eventually, Absa took that project on and kept it under secret. And as I said, that is where I actually obtained the first evidence that Absa was directly involved by the recovery or discovery of the account, which was 0000444.
Right. And we're talking about the Surti estate.
That is correct, yeah. That account specifically relates to the Suti.
Right. Now, the Surti estate appointed you as the estate asset recovery agent in search and pursuit of their assets. So, how did that happen, and how has that gone?
Well, basically, what happened is that the Suti family alleged at the time that they had money that would have come from Britain in 1984, 1985, disappeared and they could not trace. And the issue was the owner of the money, which was Abdul Razak Tayyab Suti, had already passed away. And when he passed away, he never really left enough information to be able to lead the beneficiary to where exactly the money was. So that is how I then got involved, because of my background of understanding and knowing how the banking system worked. And I offered to assist in search of this money, and that is how I subsequently was able to trace the money at Absa.
Now, when we talk about tracing money, the scam that's been implemented by the wealthiest people in South Africa and the ANC government, because they are the actual managers of the PIC, which is the pension fund that administers the government pension funds, is that they've basically made these accounts, which apparently the people don't know that there's money owing to them, dormant. And then they have creamed off all the profits to basically feather their own nests. Is what I'm saying correct?
Yes, it is 100% correct, but let me just add to that, Scott. The specific account that I want to talk really about is the account number 0000
Sure.
/4444 with the account name as AMM Sulti, and it is called a special trust account.
Yeah.
It also has an Absa bank account bank code, which is 4911090039. That is very specific and unique to this account. When on the recovery of this account, the first thing that I took note of is the account had an STA profile. Now, to understand the STA profile meaning, you need to understand how the banking system works.
Mm-hmm.
That type of account is an account that represents independent commercial stock transfer and corporate transfer.
So it's a big account, basically.
It's a big account. It's an account that basically can move in billions and trillions of rand. There is no other type of account in the banking sector that can move such big amount of cash.
Right. Now, apparently the amount of money that the Surti estate are owed is over R1 trillion.
Yes, like I said, Scott, in terms of how I was allowed to claim, like I said previously also, I was led by the legislation. What I found out when I first found the account, I wondered what would have given them the power to block this account and to conceal it. And I found out that there was a legislation that was done. So therefore, in terms of the Sulti claim, the cause of action would have arose from what we call statutory causes, which means it was by a legislation. Now, that legislation limited my claim in a sense that I could only claim from the time the money was received in South Africa and exchanged into ZAR, which was then subsequently invested into government bonds. So that limited my period of claim. So I had to claim the capital amount, which at the time was at $36 billion exchanged into ZAR at the time in June 1985. The exchange rate was in the region of R2.44 per rand dollar exchange.
Yeah.
That gave me an 87.84 billion rand, which was then invested in government bond R150 and 153, which had a yield of 13 and 12.5%. So I calculated the period of 1985 to the date of maturity date, which was 2011.
Yeah.
And that is how the 1.3 trillion came about as a claim. Now, if you understand in terms of law, that means we were entitled to the 1.35 trillion from 2011.
Right.
What I could not do is to add additional interest from 2012 to current. That I left the court to take a decision whether they would grant us what you call moral interest. And normally it is granted by the court. And if that is granted to us, the claim will then rise from 1.3 to possibly close to 3 trillion rand,
But
which is a huge amount of money.
Jeff, you're talking about when the rand was almost on parity with the US dollar. Today, it's like 20 rand to the US dollar. So surely that claim should be a lot more than just 1.35 trillion.
Yeah, if you use that formula, Scott, it would amount to huge amount of money. But unfortunately, the legislation didn't allow me to do that, to say claim the money in its original currency. The legislation actually enforced me to claim the money in South African currency.
Yeah.
But be as it may, it is still, like I said, remember the 1.35 trillion calculation was based on the bond investment from 1985, 86 or whatever till 2012.
Yeah.
And our claim is current. So we first lodged a claim in 2019. So that by law, I'm entitled to claim interest up until that period, which is 2019, 2020. And like I said, if that is allowed by the court, which is called mora interest, that will bring the claim to close to 3 trillion.
Wow.
And the question that I asked myself, Scott, was that if the claim was then escalated to that high amount, will these people be able to afford this claim or the settlement of this liability? Do they have money? And the shocking discovery was that, in fact, they have more than enough money.
Well, I understand from the PIC's website that they only have 2.53 trillion rand under investment. So where's the rest of it?
That's a very interesting part, and that is a ruse. Basically, it is intended to mislead the public, while at the same time, the 2.5 that they are openly declaring and listing is also questionable as to how they would have ended up with such a lot of money. But I'm going to deal with that one a bit later.
Sure.
The Suti claim does not even come from the 2.5 trillion. The Suti claim will be paid and settled from what you call PIC undeclared, undisclosed assets. There is a lot of money that is undeclared, which is held with Absa Bank.
Now, Jeff, just so I get my head around this, is that undeclared money what they call dormant pension funds, which is all the profits are being creamed off to pay the ANC with black economic empowerment shares and stuff like that?
Absolutely. These monies, okay, let me go back to how these monies came about. These monies came from the same source, which is the special restricted account, which came into being in 1985, which included the Suti family, the Revlin family, the Buchol family, and the Bernard Glazer family. Their monies was also blocked during that period. And these are the monies that were then concealed and hidden in this dormant account, which was found to be at Absa Bank.
Wow. Now look, I'm gonna put up this screen where you've got the stolen money flow and concealment into financial markets. Do you want to just take us through exactly how this all works?
Okay, I named that stolen money flow and concealment into financial market instrument, government bonds into the market. Okay. Well, what I discovered, okay, when I discovered the Suti accounts, I needed to understand how is this operation is being conducted. Remember, the Suti money was a cross-border transfer from the UK to South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to understand how this operation worked. And then I found out that, okay, first of all, the entity at the South African Reserve Bank that deals with cross-border transfer and receipts of money and give clearance to is called the Financial Surveillance Department.
Right.
They play a key role in receiving money that comes from offshore. So what happens? The monies that come from offshore on the legal process will go through the BIS system, which is
the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland. Yeah.
Yes. Now that is normally executed by what we would call in South Africa the authorized dealers. The authorized dealers refers to banks in South Africa. They are
right.
Authorized dealer, authorized by the finance minister to do the function.
Now, just before we go any further, Absa Bank, as I understand it, is basically an arm of Barclays Bank in London. So we're talking about the Rothschilds.
Yes, well, at the time there was a relationship with Absa and Barclays, but the joint venture had not existed up until later. But yes, what you're saying is 100% correct. Yeah.
Right.
And to date, that relationship is still intact.
And of course, that involves Trevor Manuel and his wife, and all these people who are basically like Rothschild lackeys.
Yes, well, you must remember, in fact, Trevor Manuel and Maria Ramos were instrumental into bringing Barclays back to South Africa.
Yeah.
In a deal that was very questionable, but they did. So the relationship between Trevor Manuel and Maria Ramos and Barclays is very evident, and it is very corrupt.
Yeah. Well, so, didn't Trevor Manuel work for the Rothschild Foundation in Johannesburg?
Well, Trevor Manuel he's been the chairman of Old Mutual, chairman of the Rothschild thing. So he's been very much involved in these multi-international billionaires businesses as such.
Yeah, okay.
But all right. Let me go back to...
Let's get back to the charts. We're talking about authorized dealers, okay?
Like I said, the reference of authorized dealers refer to the South African banks, which are appointed by the finance minister to conduct the exchange controls, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So the flow of money comes via the Reserve Bank. It gets cleared by the Financial Surveillance Department, which would have been requested by the authorized dealer. Then what happens from there is that, okay, now I'm speaking in specific about the Suti money as to how it ended up at Public Investment Corporation. You also have a corporation for public deposit. It is an institution belonging to government, which works alongside Public Investment Corporation.
Right. Okay.
Just a second. Let me just. Then the money would go to public corporation, to Corporation for Public Deposits, called CPD. From there, it will then go to Public Investment Corporation.
So that's how this money from overseas landed up in basically control of the ANC government, who run the Public Investment Corporation.
Yeah. Now I need to speak a little bit about PIC at the time. PIC at the time was a a full subsidiary of the Reserve Bank. It was then subsequently moved from the Reserve Bank to National Treasury during Trevor Manuel's tenure.
Mm.
So what happens then? These monies end up with Public Investment Corporation. Public Investment Corporation will then pull in the elite of the cabal of the fund managers to further conceal and invest these monies. Now, the fund managers that are allowed to make reference to is like the RMB asset manager. That refers to Rand Merchant Bank, of which the Ruperts are major shareholders.
Right, so that's where the Ruperts come into the whole thing.
Then you have Stanlib, which is a Standard Bank division of the fund manager. Then you have Future Grow, which is the old mutual, which has been implicated into money laundering in Britain, which is why I wanted the name of the guy that was investigating. Then you have the masterminds, Sanlam Investment, who are the biggest beneficiaries of these monies, which ended up enriching the Matsepes.
Hang on. How did that happen?
The Patrice Motsepe, his wealth originated from the monies of these monies being paid to Sanlam. He was then given a BEE state.
Okay. Can I just want to spell this out, because this live stream is going to get a huge number of views, and people need to understand this. So what we're saying is that the money from someone's private pension estate, or their estate, has basically been hijacked, put into these different funds, and then the profits from that money has been paid to people like Patrice Motsepe, Cyril Ramaphosa, all the other ANC mafia, to help them acquire shares in companies and basically become billionaires and millionaires. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Scott. What I'm saying is that all the ANC, or the former ANC elites, the likes of Patrice Motsepe, Ramaphosa, Tokyo Sekhwari, there's a lot of them.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you again. I remember the reason Ramaphosa said he was going to stay out of politics for a while was because he was going to be building his business base. And I remember that at that time it was Johann Rupert, if it wasn't Anton Rupert, but I think it was Johann Rupert who said, now it's time for Ramaphosa to come in because he's a very wealthy man and he's not going to screw things up.
Yes, I remember that.
So when you start joining the dots, you can see that this whole thing is complete corruption all the way through. Every single dollar that Ramaphosa owns is basically stolen from other people's pension funds.
Well, let me repeat what I already said, Scott. I said in regard to Ramaphosa, I've felt this, and I think I've said it to him in his face, that his entire wealth originated from proceeds of crime. Cyril Ramaphosa did not have money to go into business.
He was a terrorist. He was a terrorist, and suddenly he's a billionaire.
He became an instant billionaire in 1996, and
how does that happen?
That deal was structured by Mandela himself, who decided to empower him to go into business. That is when he resigned after he passed the constitution in parliament. He was then announced to be going into business.
Now the Ruperts are very, very involved in this. We'll get to the Ruperts in a second, and we've got a document here that's going to blow the socks off people who are watching, and it's called Project Spiderweb. So, Johann Rupert, when you watch this video, you know that we're going to be talking about Project Spiderweb, and we're going to expose you. Anyway, yeah, back to you.
Yeah, do you want me to speak about the Project Spiderweb?
Oh no, we'll do that separately. Let's just go through this first.
Okay, we're going to get to Project Spiderweb.
Yeah, I've got that other document we'll go into.
Very interesting, yeah.
Yeah, fascinating.
But, then the flow would go to what you call Isibaya funds. Isibaya fund is where all the black economic empowerment beneficiaries are being paid.
Now, hang on. Just so we're clear, because we're going to obviously have a lot of people across the racial divide watching this video. When we say black economic empowerment beneficiaries, we're not talking about John and Glovo in Soweto. We're talking about Ramaphosa, Dlamini Zuma. We're talking about all these top ANC who are just creaming up, including the Motsepes, using basically the profits from what they call dormant pension funds, and it's all been facilitated by the PIC, and the Rupert family are involved all the way through, as we will see shortly.
Yeah, you're quite correct, Scott. Well, the term black economic empowerment definitely does not relate to the ordinary black people in this country. In the same way, we use the word white monopoly capital. It does not refer to the ordinary white people of this country. It is limited to a certain selected elite.
They call them the Stellenbosch Mafia, I believe, which is probably a good term.
They call them many names there.
Yeah.
But yes, indeed they are, because their enrichment was...
Just so I get this straight, okay? Jeff, what we're saying is that the Rupert family, and we'll be looking at that shortly with Project Spiderweb, the Rupert family are basically stealing the pensions of people across the divide, regardless of what color you are, to basically ingratiate themselves with the ANC, to have that position where Johan Rupert said just last year to Ramaphosa, if you don't clean up your act, we're going to stop supporting you financially. So, I mean, didn't that say something to you?
Well, yes, it did. But let me just maybe correct that a bit. The Rupert family, in terms of their control of these money, goes way back to Anton Rupert, who was the father of
Johan.
The junior Johan and Anton. It's actually the mastermind in terms of stealing. I'm going to use the word stealing the family's money and concealing it and determining how it would be split and who would get shares. So when we say the Ruperts are controlling the pension fund money, we're referring to more specifically to these four families' money.
Yeah.
Anton Rupert was a mastermind. He was in control. He decided who gets what shares from this money. So when we use the term that the Ruperts are the one that's directing and plundering the pension fund, we're referring specifically to these monies that were now under the Public Investment Corporation, which is the fund manager for government pension fund. So that is how I can put it into context in terms of the Rupert's involvement into this thing.
Now, when we talk about the Government Employment Pension Fund, how does that fit in?
Yeah, you see, this is a very, very sensitive thing, because in terms of the graph that what is clear here is that PIC, Public Investment Corporation, with the subsidiary Sibaya and government pension fund, are used as entities of serious money laundering in this country by the likes of the Ruperts, which are fund managers. See, the plan is this.
That's through RMB Asset Management.
Absolutely. The plan is that let them implicate themselves. What is said is the fact that Public Investment Corporation is a state-owned entity. Government Pension Fund is a state-owned entity. Any repercussion in terms of serious financial violation, these are the institutions that will go down. Not an example is the matter of the UK, where the old Mutual Net Bank is implicated. They are now saying, well, we were acting on behalf of PIC. So if there's going to be a liability and a lawsuit against anybody, against international violation, it would be these two institutions, which is PIC and Government Pension Fund. So the risk is so high, which again will take me to the question where I said we briefly discussed in our first interview about South Africa being declared as a corporation. That is a serious matter.
Now, look, I want to talk to that because there's a question I wanted to ask you. And anybody can go onto the Google and type in Republic of South Africa, Corporation, SEC, and you'll come up with a document that says Republic of South Africa is a registered corporation with the SEC, which means it's not a country, it's actually a company. So what does that say for people who are living in South Africa? What are they?
You see, the people in South Africa are really ignorant to the fact that this country is in serious danger. Being registered as a corporation, that means, more specifically with the U.S. Commission of Security Commission and Britain, any violation that may be found, that means these countries have the right to sue the country which is registered as a corporation down to zero. So the fact that we're still operational right now with everything that's going wrong, the way we get ourselves involved in money laundering and all sort of violation, the risk is so high that this country could go down any minute. That is dependent on how the U.S. regulators see these violations as being serious or not, which they are, because they constitute to serious money laundering, and the same would apply in the UK. So,
but Jeff, let me ask you: if it's a corporation, who owns the Republic of South Africa? Who is the owner of that corporation? There's got to be an owner if it's a registered corporation. Who is it?
Well, if it's a registered corporation, obviously you need to have directors or whatever.
And I understand that Johan Rupert is the CEO of the corporation known as the Republic of South Africa. That's what I've heard.
He could well be, because in fact the country South Africa being registered as a corporation, that was initiated by the Finance Ministry. Now, the Finance Ministry is controlled by the Johan Ruperts. In fact, it is controlled by the Economic Department of Stellenbosch. But yes, it could well be that Johan Rupert is a CEO, like what is a fact is that at the time, Trevor Manuel was one of the directors. Praveen Gordhan was one of the directors of that corporation.
And Maria Ramos, just to be clear, used to be very high up in Absa Bank, didn't she?
Maria Ramos is a mastermind behind the scene. I'm going to tell you that Maria Ramos first was at Treasury well before Trevor Manuel, and she was placed there by the Broederbond, which is the like of Johan Rupert, to control that.
Because the Rupert family used to head up the Broederbond just before 1994, just for the record.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they did. So Maria Ramos was placed there by the Broederbond, the Ruperts, basically to take control over the National Treasury, which is where the spiderweb document is going to come in.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that shortly. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But Maria Ramos has been at Treasury long before Trevor Manuel, basically. And when Trevor Manuel came there, she continued to be the main person. I call her the finance minister, and I call Trevor Manuel just being a face in the front. So she detected.
So she's actually the main player.
Yes. Then from Treasury she moved to Transnet as a CEO. During 2009-2010, we started investigating Absa, and there was a sudden panic. We were investigating Absa in terms of what was alleged to have been lifeboat to certain banks. And there was a panic because that was leading to reveal the Suti matter or the monies of the four families. Then suddenly Maria was moved from Transnet to take over the position of CEO at Absa.
CEO of Absa Bank.
Absa Bank, which was the most bizarre move. But the minute Maria Ramos took over, the first thing, she called up a board meeting, executive meeting, and instructed all these, the executive not to disclose anything about account number 0000444 because
The Surtees family.
That is when they realized where the expose was coming to, but it came through what we call a lifeboat, which was an investigation commission of inquiry led by Willem Judge Heath, which I also wanted to speak a little bit about, but maybe next time.
Now, look, whenever I see Johan Rupert, he looks like a cane toad to me. He's so overweight. He sits there with this sort of, this crazy look on his face, and he hasn't realized yet that he has been exposed, and he has been exposed. I'm going to cross over now to this Project Spiderweb. Can you see that, Jeff?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, look, I think what we'll do is we'll just go through this very, very logically, because this is what has been going on behind the scenes in South Africa while the fake mainstream media have been suggesting that everything is fine and dandy and the ANC government have been doing the right thing for everybody. Well, guess what? You've been deceived. The country has been run by the Rupert family and the Oppenheimers and the Rothschilds, as you will see, but now it's a Rupert family who've taken over. It used to be called Project something else. It's in here. We'll get to it. Doesn't matter. But tell us how you've put this document together.
Yeah. Okay. For the purpose of this interview, I am not going to go into details about it, but I'm just going to touch.
Are there some people you'd like to recognize who've been involved in your work in exposing this?
Well, yes, I'm going to touch a little bit on that, but for the purpose of understanding this document, I think the viewers, I think it will be good if you posted it as a link so they can read it.
Mm-hmm.
But I am the co-author of the document. The context of the document was obtained through the late Professor Sampi de Blanche. Sampi de Blanche used at one stage before his retirement, used to head the economic department of Stellenbosch University. A very outspoken person,
Right.
which I had the pleasure to meet and share certain thoughts. So the information that is contained in this document comes from FESENT, from the economic department of Stellenbosch, which again I said it is the economic department of Stellenbosch that actually controls the national treasury at Stellenbosch. This was done through Maria Ramos and Trevor Manuel, who has a code name of King of Leaves. And
Okay, well, we'll get to that's in this document. We'll get to that shortly. Yeah.
So basically, this document. Myself and my team, shared it with Jacob Zuma in terms of if you go into the document, you'll see where we highlighted text with red, basically.
Yeah.
Our concern was that an institution like National Treasury cannot be influenced by outside people out of government. It posed serious danger. We found out that Maria Ramos, who is the actual handler of National Treasury, was giving instruction of who should be appointed where, etc. This happened during the tenure of Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene, who was having secret meeting with Maria and taking instruction. My team and myself saw this as a big threat, so we decided to have an urgent meeting with Jacob Zuma to inform him about this danger. And subsequent to that, Jacob Zuma fired Nhlanhla Nene. And there was an outcry. The markets went down, the rand lost its value, and there was total panic.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which then resulted into Pravin Gordhan being reappointed.
Now, just so people are clear, Ramaphosa and Pravin Gordhan have got so much shit on each other that they've got to basically ensure that they're both up there, haven't they?
Well, they come from the same school, same group.
Yeah.
Remember, Cyril Ramaphosa and Pravin Gordhan come from the CODESA elite, basically. They were the chosen one from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And they were both instrumental to the new constitution, which was then proclaimed to be the best constitution in the world, which is BS as far as I'm concerned, because that constitution became the biggest sellout to the black people in this country.
Yeah.
And it was pushed and passed by Parliament. That is when immediately after that constitution was passed and accepted, that is when Ramaphosa was then rewarded and given money to go into business.
And that was, just so people understand, that was money that was laundered through the PIC from dormant pension funds, the profits.
Yes,
and that's where he and Motsepe and all these other billionaires tied up with the ANC elite have made their money from dormant pension funds, money belonging to other people. And just for the people from some of the homelands just understand this fact, that this includes also the money from millions of pensioners from Transkei, Bophuthatswana, Ciskei, and Venda, where their pension money has basically been stolen by the ANC elite. That's what's happened. It's called the TBCV. Do you want to talk about that before we continue, Jeff?
Yes, because that to me is one of the most sensitive things. For the life of me, I still cannot comprehend with the fact that the ANC would rob their own. And when I say rob their own, is actually using the pensioners' money, the old people's money who had beneficiaries. The number of these people that were robbed, which belong to the TBVC state, runs in a region of between 800 to 1 million members.
Wow.
Whose money was then used, most of it was used to fund the BEE project, which enriched the elite, like the Ramaphosa, the Motsepe, the Sokwale, and the Kumalos, and many others. The sad part is the following, that they did this without any consideration that the million pensioners also had beneficiaries, which could, if you do the maths, you are talking about several millions of black poor people who were robbed of their livelihood.
And it's now in the hands of Ramaphosa and his mates, and they're buying farms and building houses in Cape Town with their money.
And they feel nothing about it.
And it's been facilitated by the Rupert family, who are basically controlling things from the top.
Absolutely. And while I'm on that subject, let me just elaborate a bit further, is that during that period, these monies, including the four families' money and the pension, was then, a decision was taken that these monies would be split between the ANC elite and the big corporate businesses in this country, which include the Oppenheimers, the Ruperts, and many others. So they robbed, in actual fact, they robbed the four families, meaning that they stole the dead people's money, including the old people, pensioners' money, to self-enrich themselves. Now, I need to explain a little bit about how the corporate, it is crystal clear how the ANC selected elite got the money and how they used it. But it is not clear as to how the corporate would have got the money and how they benefit from these monies. But let me explain that. Out of the 78 files that I spoke to briefly about, that's in my possession, this is how the plan worked. Out of these monies, you would then pay shares. I'm going to just use an example. You will then pay shares to the Ruperts via the Rembrandt Group by buying shares into the company. For instance, if you go and you look at shareholding of the Rembrandt Group, you would find that there is a certain percentage. At this stage, I don't have my files. I could give you the specific amount, but there would be a specific shareholding either listed under PIC, being PIC shareholding at Ramgro or GEP holding. So that would mean I'm just going to use an off figure and say GEP PIC invest 20 billion into Ramaphosa Group.
Right.
Now, it is listed as shareholding. Now, let me tell you the trick is, this is not limited to the Ramaphosa Group. It's include all the 4 banks. They have shares in the 4 banks. They have shares in Anglo American. They have shares in all the big corporates in this country. They were given money as they share or a split of the stolen money, but it was done in a form of buying shares. Now, evidence of this, that it was stolen money, is that in the financials of government pension fund or the PIC financial, if I buy shares in any company, I need to show dividend or return of those shares.
Right.
None of these companies are paying any dividends to either PIC or government pension fund. So that means, by virtue, these monies where they share or the gift or the split of the stolen money as a great.
So just to be clear, if you go to the PIC's website where it says has 2.53 trillion rand under investment, that's a load of codswallop.
Yeah. If you go, okay, remember PIC and GEP look, PIC should not have assets. So what they declare is actually majority of those assets belong to GEP.
Yeah.
But they do separate financials. If you go to GEP financials, it will show you the 2.5 trillion assets. It will give you a breakdown of them. It will give you so many billion invested in government bond and then shares in various companies. Now let's focus on GEP financial. It will show you Anglo American. We have shares worth 20 billion. We have shares worth 10 billion at Ramaphosa Group, etc., etc. That's the point that I'm trying to talk about. I'm saying they show those money as being invested as share into these companies, and yet in their own financials they don't show any return of investment. Basically, if I buy shares in a company,
it's like the dormant account that doesn't earn any profit.
Yeah, so basically it's just a ruse to fool people. These monies that were paid to these corporates were actually a gift and remain to be a gift. By virtue, it remained to be stolen money, which the big corporate of this country benefited. This is including the banks of this country.
Now, just to be clear, this money that's been stolen makes what happened to the VBS Bank look like a kitchen party, one Saturday afternoon in comparison. And what the Guptas did to South Africa, just like maybe something bigger than a kitchen party. We're talking about huge amounts of money being stolen from people who can hardly afford to get food and being put in the hands of the billionaires in South Africa.
Yeah, man. Like I said in my previous one,
this is disgusting. Look, I hope that every person from the townships and the other parts of South Africa who watches this video, shares this video, and says, guys, the ANC government are screwing us, and they're screwing us in cahoots with white monopoly capital, which is the Rupert, the Oppenheimers, and those very privileged billionaire families in South Africa. The ANC are the problem, and that's why South Africa is completely stuffed right now.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more than that, Scott. The biggest elephant in the house is the ANC, and the ANC has been captured. That's the word we use in South Africa.
Just on that point, I sent you an email from, we won't say who the guy is, but he is investigating we're going to have this guy on next month, hopefully. He's investigating Glencore and their role in actually getting Cyril Ramaphosa elected as president back in 2018. And he's actually written a letter. I'm going to read this letter. Do you mind if I do that?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, this is a letter. This is a guy we're going to be talking to hopefully next month. And this is a letter to Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. And he writes, this was only written, let me give you the exact date that because we've been talking to this guy for a while, the 23rd of July, which is like 2 days ago. He wrote this letter to Dr. Dlamini Zuma. And he says, regarding banks being set to terms, your statement at the BRICS Youth Conference last week. And he says, and banks' role in the legalization of international organized crime, money laundering, which includes the laundering of money in order to pay for bribes to prevent your election as president of the Republic of South Africa by 179 votes in the 2017 elective conference as alleged. And he says, my name is, and I'm not going to say what his name is, and in April this year, Glencore Council in the United Kingdom, under the instruction of Chairman Nagel, requested a meeting with me in Glasgow, Scotland, to discuss the above. As I lead a private UK investigation into the legislation of international money laundering structures designed to alter the purpose of state institutions by South African banks operating under United Kingdom banking charters. And of course, we're talking about Barclays Bank there, aren't we? Who are very, very involved in this. But anyway, he goes on to say, during the course of which the evidence arose regarding the above. Glencore admittance of international bribery and corruption to the US Department of Justice and the SFO UK, resulting in fines in excess of $1,700,000,000 US dollars, demanded by compliance undertakings to the US Department of Justice at the meeting be held. The alleged evidence of the bribery of ANC members from Glencore funds laundered through the bank under investigation to rig the 2017 elective conference against you. My meeting with Glencore Council returned the mandate of addressing this concern to me, as did the President's attorney in the Farmgate money laundering scandal. He's talking about Peter Harris. We're talking about Pala Pala, where all of a sudden Ramaphosa gets a free pass. Now, he goes on to say, requiring me to now publish this advert included below, which is self-explanatory. I'm not going to do the advert because he's still got to publish it, but I'm on the inside on this particular story. He goes on to say, given your statement made in your address to the BRICS Youth Conference last week about the conduct of banks, if you consider as minister in the presidency to approach President Ramaphosa, whose office has ignored the recommendations to consult with me in the appointment of an independent legal opinion from independent legal counsel, to determine, amongst other concerns, the alleged corruption of state institutions by the banks concerned. If the 2017 ANC elective conference was corrupted by an admitted corruption, corporate or not. As I believe that you and the South African voters have a right to know if the 179 votes that cost you the presidency in 2017 was as a result of South Africa Bank's role in the alleged corruption of the South African people's inalienable human right to elect leaders of their choice or not. As a US SEC whistleblower and founder of the human rights lobby group, and I'm not going to say the name here, am bound under the US Foreign Corruption Practices Act to publish the advert included below in the first week of August. So this advert will be appearing apparently in South African papers next week, which may disrupt the legitimacy of the BRICS conference before world leaders who are coming across to South Africa because of the illegitimacy of the President Ramaphosa. And he signs off by saying, your kind attention to this matter by bringing it to the attention of President Ramaphosa would be appreciated. And he closes by saying, failing which the advert will be published in South African papers. That's if they're allowed to. But anyway, that's what he says. What are your comments on that, Jeff?
Yeah, no, I've heard of the gentleman that wrote your email, and I don't know him personally, but I can confirm without any doubt everything that is just stated that you've just read to me is 100% correct. The ANC election conference was rigged. There were a lot of people that were private. That's it's a public knowledge here in South Africa. But
isn't it interesting that CR17 has been sealed? No one's allowed to know who actually paid money into that. I mean, that to me just smells like a rat.
It doesn't smell like a rat. The evidence is there. I mean, before it was even concealed, there was clear evidence of who all paid money to the C17, and Glencoe featured there as one of the main ones. So it's a known fact, basically, because the public protector, who was then afterwards verified and terrorized and removed by Ramaphosa, attempted to expose this whole saga, but she was basically.
So what we're saying, Jeff, is this charade or this facade, this bullshit that Ramaphosa is a squeaky clean guy who would come in and sort out the corruption in South Africa. He makes Zuma look like a rank amateur. Why really was Zuma kicked out of his position as president?
Yeah, let me get into that. In terms of the ANC conference, I want to take you back into 2017 policy conference, where I was the attendant of that conference through the Women's League. And by the way, I was the special economic advisor to the ANC Women's League, which was led by Batabile Dlamini at the time. So at the policy conference, they did manage to smuggle me in. I participated in those things, whereby into the policies, whereby I actually brought up the illegalities that were going within National Treasury, which was at the time under Pravin Gordhan. I confronted Pravin Gordhan in regard to the Suti monies and the other three. And Cyril Ramaphosa was one of the people at that conference that stood up in defense of Pravin Gordhan when I called Pravin Gordhan to the podium to explain about these monies that were being plundered and benefiting not the country or the majority of the people, but certain elite. And Ramaphosa's defense at the time was we could not discuss such a matter at the ANC conference, but this was a government-related matter which he undertook to me that he would get hold of me within a week to discuss and see the way forward. And I want to say Ramaphosa has been on a run in terms of this matter, which he knows very well, which he also knows that he was one of the biggest beneficiaries. He's been on a run since 2017. So from that time, I can tell you they saw that I was being a problem, and they sort of like suspected me to be aligned to the Zuma faction, which was there at the time, Nkosazana Zuma's clan, which stood against Ramaphosa. So I remember the Women's League was fully behind Nkosazana Zuma's election as the new president. So therefore, there was certain panic that I was somehow giving information to the Women's League. The information was getting to Jacob Zuma. So Jacob Zuma then was seen as a threat to expose us. And he was actually going to expose it. And because soon after the election where Ramaphosa won the presidency by 179, which was totally rigged. It was vote buying, which was funded by the banks.
CR17.
Yeah, CRC17. And that is evidence. Like I say, he managed to conceal those records, but the records are there. We can still get those records.
I would love someone to send me those records, because I'm in Australia. I will publish the bloody things. I'll expose the bastards who funded Ramaphosa.
But anyway, let me just continue.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Then the election came about. Ramaphosa bought certain members. He won the election by 179. He then became the official appointed new president of the ANC. At the time, remember, Jacob Zuma still, in terms of the ANC policy, still had a year to complete his term, basically. So that meant Ramaphosa would have just remained a president of the ANC, but not as a president of the country. On round about the 19th, 20th of January, I was at Jacob Zuma's residence in Pretoria to talk about the Suti matter. At that time, they were still talking about the Commission of Inquiry of State Capture, which I wanted Jacob Zuma to include in the term of reference.
Right.
And on, I think it was the 20th, Zuma then called Cyril Ramaphosa and Malusi Gigaba and Lynn Brown to talk about the crisis that was going on at Eskom at the moment. And Ramaphosa and Malusi Gigaba, finance minister, then were on their way to go to Davos for the World Economic Conference. And they saw me there with Zuma. When they saw me, both of them knew me. They knew the things that I knew. So when they saw me, there was sudden panic. Meaning, when they left with Davos, Zuma's removal was actually discussed at Davos with the likes of the Ruperts and whoever the big guns are in financial, that Zuma had to be removed with immediate effect, because when they came back from Davos, that is when they executed the recall of Jacob Zuma. Now, Jacob Zuma had not been removed, he had at that point agreed to address the monies of these dead people that were being stolen, because he was.
Okay, so that was basically the catalyst for them wanting to remove Zuma from the scene.
Yes, he had known nothing about it up until he got the whole information from me, and he didn't just buy into my information. I said for 2 days, I took him through every piece of evidence, and he was flabbergasted, to say the least. And he gave me an assurance. I will, on the 8th of February, I will actually announce it in my State of the Nation address. And I will instruct Minister Gigaba to resolve the issue. And I will further include it in my term of reference to the Zondo Commission, of which he did. Like I said, I was the first person. Remember, the state of inquiry of the state capture was first approved and declared round about that time. I was the first person to do the submission, and I was not called. So I am here to say, without any doubt, that Zuma was quickly, unprecedentedly removed from his position because he was going to spill the beans on the ANC and their involvement in concert with the Broederbond of stealing dead people's money.
Now, look, I just want to say that when we're talking about this, I find it absolutely crazy that you've got a situation where the ANC, who claim to be the great liberators of the black African population, have literally destroyed the lives of tens of millions of black Africans in South Africa.
Well, let me just clarify that. I myself I was born into the ANC. The ANC of then and the ANC of now, of the CODESA, is a different ANC. Totally different ANC. The ANC of CODESA, which is the ANC of current leadership, must die in this country. We need a new birth of the ANC, otherwise we don't need the ANC anymore. They betrayed the black people. They betrayed us who supported and fought against the injustice of the apartheid.
Do you think they were bought out by people like the Ruperts?
They were definitely bought. Mandela sold the entire ANC.
I'm actually with this video that I'll play on Thursday. I'm going to play a little video clip where Mandela is getting the 33rd degree of the Freemasons from white people, and the message there is Mandela sells out.
Mandela definitely sold out, without any doubt, and I think every black person in this country knows that, but they're just too ashamed to mention it. But people are starting to speak out.
Yeah, look, I'm seeing that. There's more and more.
And the truth is that he sold us to the elite white people called the Broederbond.
Yeah.
He had secret deals with them.
Now, just my understanding is that he used to go and see Harry Oppenheimer on a regular basis for lunches and dinners.
Okay, remember the following, that Mandela ended up staying in Anton Rupert's house in Houghton.
Yeah.
So therefore, you have this Broederbond having total control and full access to Mandela, staying in their own houses. So he was with them 24/7, period. They influenced his decision. He bullshitted all of us when I say bullshitted all of us, I mean he bullshitted the black nation by making them believe that whatever he was doing was in the interest of the nation as such.
Well, look, I have to say that most of the black African population are great people. I've grew up in South Africa. I knew a lot of Africans, and you know, they're lovely people. But you have some feral leaders like Julius Malema, who can cause so much trouble for the entire nation. And this is the problem. The last thing in the world you need is a corrupt mafia government when you've got some little sidekick like Malema sitting on the side saying, kill the Boer, kill the farmer. I mean, that to me is, it's a recipe for disaster.
It is unfortunate that Malema would call for such thing, and he knows, deep down in his heart, he knows. In fact, Julius Malema knows the whole story about the ANC. He knows how Mandela sold us. He knows where it went wrong. And I just find it amusing sometimes that he would use those terms like fight against. The enemy here against the black people is not the white people. It's their own black leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been bought.
So what I'm saying is there are times Malema would say the right things, but because of politics, and his followers are those type of radical people, he will say the wrong thing, and it is sad that he does, because he's got potential to be a good leader, but he misses the point most of the time.
Yeah, well, look, I have a good friend who's a billionaire in South Africa. I'm not going to say what his name is here, but he said on a live stream that I had with him about a year ago, I guess, that Malema will say anything to basically meet the appreciation of the crowd he's talking to. So if he's talking to a bunch of Boers, he will say how wonderful you are, you made the food for South Africa, you did wonderful things. But if he's talking to some of these people in one of the locations, and he stirs them up by saying, kill the Boer. So, you know, he's just bullshit.
Those are the voting cows, Scott, and if you have voting cows, you give them what they want to incite them, and
well, that's what Malema is very good at doing,
and they will vote for you because you're talking something that's unrealistic, which is bullshit. But because they want to believe it, they would will continue to support you. So it's all about politics.
Now look, Jeff.
He says the right thing at the right platform with different people. It all depends who's he addressing.
Exactly. It's all bullshit. Now, look, I want to go through these members of the Project Spiderweb, because you've actually named and shamed them, and with their titles in Project Spiderweb. So tell me about Andrew Donaldson, the first. He's a Government Technical Advisory Center.
Andrew was at one stage, he became the Director General of Treasury. He's been at Treasury for a number of years. And he is one of the very key members of the Broederbond that put everything into place, and he remains to be in a key position. So all the people that are named with special codes had basically vital role that they had to play within Treasury and Finance Minister to influence that the economy of the country remains within the big corporate, which is the Rupert.
The Rupert family. Yeah, the Rupert family. So his code name is the Emperor.
Yes.
Okay, let's go to the next one, because this is fascinating. Okay, there's actually more information on him. So yeah, tell me some more.
Yeah, no, other than his qualification, he knows what he's doing. A very intelligent guy, yes.
Yeah. Okay, but he basically works for the Rupert family.
Well, like I said, Scott, basically the national treasury of South Africa was taken control by the Ruperts from after 1994. Remember, when the Broederbond conceded to the defeat politically, they decided to focus more on the control of the economy, and the only way you could control the economy is by taking control of the National Treasury Finance Ministry to be under your control. From that point, everything to do with the economy and finances would be under control. And this is why I said in my state capture report that the biggest state capture happened when the Broederbond took control over the treasury of this country.
Yeah.
And you must remember, if you control the finance ministry, you then automatically control the FSB, which is the financial market. You control the SARB, which is the South African Reserve Bank. You control SARS. You control the banking sector. So
even if the suggestion that South Africa is a corporation registered at the SEC, which it is, the Rupert family are basically running the country. That's what we're saying.
Absolutely, that's what it means. Basically, is that okay, maybe we shouldn't even call it a country. Let's call it a corporation. The Ruperts, the likes of the Ruperts, are controlling the corporation of South Africa, which by virtue is supposed to be the Republic of South Africa.
Now, tell me about this woman.
This one. I can tell you a lot of things, but I don't think it will be appropriate. This one, when it comes to the implication of the Gumtas and the companies that were implicated, she is instrumental to those deals. And then while I'm on that,
hang on. So what you're saying is a state capture went on with the facilitation of this project Web,
Absolutely. Look, the state capture happened in South Africa because the National Treasury enabled it. They enabled it. They allowed the Gumtas to benefit a little bit. What the Gumtas benefited in certain contract is just like tip of the iceberg, because the main thing, the bigger pie, was benefiting the Broederbond, period. So the state capture would have not happened in South Africa if the National Treasury was doing what they're supposed to do. They had to allow certain things to happen, because if they didn't, then it would focus on them as to who and how they were benefiting from the state.
Yeah. Now this document
I'm looking. Yeah, there's a McKenzie story. You see that McKenzie?
Yeah.
Had worked for McKenzie. Can you see there?
Yeah.
Precisely. She was part and parcel of the Gumta corruption, because McKenzie was the one that got the money to pay the Gumtas.
Okay. Wow. Now, just so I'm totally clear, how old is this document we're looking at now?
This document we smuggled it and published through MoneyWeb. I think it was 2016, 2017.
So it's about 6 years old. Okay.
Yes.
So if people are no longer in those roles, that's why.
This document was forwarded to National Treasury to comment on it. Like normal, they say, well...
And you heard nothing.
It's a propaganda. There's no propaganda. We don't operate with propaganda.
Yeah.
What we reveal and disclose is factual.
Yeah.
And this document, if anyone wants to dispute it, they can call up a public debate on it. And,
or they can challenge it in court, but they won't.
I've offered all these people that I implicate, if you have a problem, let's call up an open debate.
Yeah.
Live on national.
Now tell me about Anthony Julius. Who's he?
Anthony Julius is one of the DDGs there also. I don't know if he's still there now, but all the people that we've listed are the selected people that had vital roles to implement and make sure that the interest of the big corporate spider web was being protected in this institution. Each one of them were selected, and they know they were controlled mainly by Maria Ramos and Trevor Manuel. They knew what to do and what not to disclose. They all parted to the top secret of how the spider web operates with the International Treasury.
Now look, there's a comment there in the third last line that's on the screen at the moment, where it talks about public-private partnerships, PPPs. Now, public-private partnerships are something that Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum talks about extensively in his book, The Great Reset. And public-private partnerships are a way that big business can take away your democratic rights and make your country part of a one world government. So it's very interesting that that's actually in this document.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's been part of the strategy is for us to get into this one world order, basically, and that is being executed from the finance ministry. Finance ministry by virtue is national treasury, basically. Otherwise, there would be no existence of finance ministry.
Wow. This is dynamite, mate. This is dynamite. So, Marissa Moore, spiderweb codename, the Hustler. That sounds like some prostitute or something. What's she all about?
Remember also these code names, we didn't create them. They were given by the spiderweb.
How did you come across them? How did you actually identify who they were meant to be?
Yeah, you remember? No, like I say, I am not the person that gave these names. The information that we
came from someone on the inside. Okay, I got it.
To compile this, I mentioned the late Professor Sampi Teplan.
The late. I'm pleased you said the late, because he might have a target on his back.
Yes, the late Sampi Teplan.
So he was on the inside. He knew.
He was the inside. He knew that man. He knew so much. And for me, it was a privilege and a pleasure to have known him.
Absolutely.
He shared so much with me, and
So Marissa Moore, is she still at the University of Johannesburg?
No. Let's go back to what did I say about her? What did we say about her?
Here we go.
Just scroll up. Johannesburg. That's where she came from. Remember, all these people that are listed here became employees of the National Treasury. That is a background.
But they were all part of Project Spiderweb.
Definitely, yes. Selected stuff within the National Treasury.
So for someone who goes and works 9 to 5 and thinks that they've got a government that's actually working in their best interest, it's all crap. It's all bullshit.
It is total crap. That's what it is, basically.
Okay,
That is why Zuma's. I don't even know how he manages 2 term, because he was deprived of anything that he wanted to do. Was just 10 down, and yet during Thabo Mbeki's tenure, they went left, right, and center. That is where we lost hundreds and billions of money through the Project Gear, which was a total flop, which is where Spiderweb originated from, was from that Project Gear, to empower the corporation to create jobs, which they don't create jobs in this country. They self-enrich them with stolen money even.
This is just disgusting. I mean, it just shows why the filth of... I think of Jesus in the temple in Jerusalem turning over the money, the money changers' tables and throwing the... that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about filth. We aren't talking about people to be respected. We're talking about disgusting scum.
Yeah, no.
And you say you're still searching for the presence of the spider web. What's that to do with?
Oh no, that came up on the computer while we were basically no.
Okay, so we that's still to be confirmed. Okay,
Confirmed.
But tax and financial sector policy, and that's not a bad thing. It shows that if you don't know, you say so.
No.
Yeah.
No. No, basically, what we were doing is to illustrate each and every one of those Spiderweb members, their function that they do, and so there are some of the guys that don't even know that they are actually selected part of the Spiderweb.
But they've still got their names, like the bull.
But remember, these guys are being coached and told what to do. So whatever they do is in line with what is planned.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Yeah.
Can you say anything about Ismail Momaniat?
Ismail is a very smart boy, and he's still there. He knows a lot of secrets. But
is this what he does? Is this what he's involved in?
Recently, he's been also acting as the national Director General after the Dondo guy was removed. So he's been there quite some time. And a very smart boy, but he is part of the Spiderweb operation. He knows a lot of secret which he would not disclose here.
Okay. All right, let's keep on going into governmental relations. I'm going slowly through this so people can fast or freeze frame this during the video if they want to later on. So he's been involved in the Office of the Accountant General.
Yes.
He's been involved in public finance.
Now that's the one guy at Treasury that's been all in every department. He knows that Treasury in out.
Wow.
And as far as I know, he's one of the long-standing members here.
Yeah.
Kenneth Brown, I think he's no longer there. He ended up being given a position. And you must remember the other interesting part is that all these guys, when they leave Treasury, they either get position at the banks or they either get
get high salaries and do nothing.
At the University of Stellenbosch as some lecturer or something. So they continue to be rewarded. Like for an example, the former DG Lungisa Fuzile is the CEO or chairman of Standard Bank, and that's how it all works in the end.
Yeah. Okay, so state-owned enterprises under National Treasury and under the influence of the Spiderweb. What's this all about?
Yeah, I remember the SARS saga where Tom Moyana actually decided to change the leadership there. That was quite a knock, but in the end they won the battle because they eventually got Tom out and accused him of all kind of things.
Yeah.
What Tom was trying to do was to get rid of the Spiderweb operation within SARS, and that is the saddest part because you have an institution like SARS which is supposed to be a watchdog, and once they become part of the
problem
cabal,
then
Yeah, for instance, let me talk about the money movement out of the Suti account in 2020 to 2022 during the COVID period, which was an ideal time to commit this kind of crime while everybody was worried about being affected with the virus and dying, and they were busy moving huge amount of money.
Yeah.
Now, in the normal system, the banking system in South Africa works as such. Any amount that moves from an account of 25,000 sets an alarm to SARS, and SARS then will alert the financial intelligence agent, which is FIC, which is the one assigned to oversee and ensure that there are no aspect of money laundering.
Unless you're the president, of course.
Yeah. So now you have money moving, not even 20. We're talking about the threshold is 25,000 of money that need to be reported and declared with SARS.
Yeah.
Then you have monies being moved by Absa Bank through the national payment system of the Reserve Bank in hundreds of billions.
Oh, wow.
In total for that period was 2.5 trillion that was moved between 2020 and 2022. And yet, no alarms went off.
And was this under Maria Ramos?
No, Maria Ramos actually subsequently left ABSA.
Yeah.
When she left ABSA, she was immediately appointed as the board member of PIC. Now,
here we go, PIC. Isn't that
PIC.
Interesting? Oh, God.
When I started terrorizing PIC, Maria panicked and she resigned. And where did she go? She is now a board member of Standard Bank. Why Standard Bank? Because these accounts, including the Suti account and the GEP investment portfolio, was then moved from ABSA just before Maria left ABSA.
Yeah.
To Standard Bank.
Wow.
She is currently a board member of Standard Bank. She still oversees and guards these monies.
Well, look, I just I want to stop you right there because I know Maria Ramos is going to be watching this video, and I would invite her to contact me at lovinglifetv.com to come and respond to the allegations that Jeff is making in this video.
Please do.
Please
do.
Please, you know, it's an open invitation. We'll have a discussion, and you can actually put your perspective on this. Back to you, Jeff.
Please do that, Scott. I would love you to do that because I have.
I doubt she'll come on, because what I might do is I might actually have you waiting in the wings, and once we're talking, I might bring you onto that live stream, and I don't think she would like that at all.
No, she wouldn't. Even without me, she would not even answer one question out of this because she knows. That's been a strategy between her husband, Praveen Gordhan, is to say nothing. For as long as you say nothing, you don't implicate yourself.
Yeah.
But bottom line is that they are the masterminds behind all of this.
It's disgusting. It is just sick. It's disgusting, and it just I can't believe how people like Johan Rupert, who's got so much friggin' money. I know he lost 1.6 billion rand in the last couple of months because of his luxury organization in Europe had a bit of a fall. Well, guess what, mate? If we have our way, based on what I'm hearing here, you're going to be spending the rest of your life in a little place called a jail. Yeah. And you might.
Yeah, no, we hope one day justice will prevail and all these people will end up in jail. A whole lot of them, including Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa has been able to duck and dive and escape even
Well, stealing money. Look, I just want to get back to this because I think this is really the elephant in the room, and that is the fact that millions of pensioners. We're talking about black African pensioners whose probably their pensions were probably only, let's say, a few thousand rand, but their pensions from places like Transkei, Bophuthatswana, Ciskei, and Venda have been stolen by the ANC elite to fund their black economic empowerment deals to take over and have shares in big companies and make themselves billionaires. I mean, that to me is just sick.
That is the saddest moment for me to even think about how do these people even sleep at night?
Look, they're psychopaths. They're just not normal people. They live in a fantasy world where they think they're God, and they're not. Yeah. They're just criminals. That's all they are. And that includes Mr. Ramaphosa.
Well, let me just put it this way. South Africa, as it stands today, is a failed state.
It is, absolutely.
There is
absolutely failed. Yeah.
Because for the likes of me, Scott, I cannot even imagine how is it that Ramaphosa has not been charged as yet in regard to the Palo saga.
Well, the public protector suggested he didn't have a case to answer, and guess who appointed the public protector? Well,
but the public protector is a different institution. The public protector looked in terms of did Ramaphosa contravene the constitution in terms of his code of ethics. That's a different thing. I'm not even interested in it, because why I'm not interested in that? Because that's this parliament, which to me, parliament has become a circus. Basically, what you have there is a bunch of clowns. The same parliament instituted an inquiry, got an ex-judge to investigate whether Ramaphosa had something to answer to. And the report was very accurate. It said Ramaphosa has violated his code of ethics. It further said there is prima facie evidence that Ramaphosa can be charged criminally. And that's the part that worries me the most, is because there is prima facie. Ramaphosa, by virtue, Ramaphosa came to know about the breaking. He then decides not to report to the police, but to do his own investigation using state money. He goes after the thieves. He finds his money. He even finds the people of Chinese national that exchange the dollars into rand, which by virtue, those are the money launderers. He must have got his money back. He must have threatened the Chinese and got his money back, because he then fails to open up criminal charges even against them. That was a serious crime. Them taking the money from the thieves and exchanging it into a different currency. That is constitute to money laundering. They are the money launderers.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that he failed to do that as a president of a country, you have foreign nationals in your country who money launder stolen money and exchange it, and you do nothing about it. Therefore, by virtue, Ramaphosa, in terms of the legislation and in terms of the common law, he is guilty and he is an accomplice of money laundering in this country, because by not charging the Chinese.
Well, look, I want to I just want to tell you, Jeff, I want to tell you something that I've heard through the grapevine, and this is from a very, very legitimate source. And you remember when Ramaphosa and his huge security detail went over to Russia and Ukraine to go and sort out the war and bring peace to the world. His plane was actually held up at Warsaw in Poland. And the official line by the fake mainstream media was because of the guns and the armaments on that plane. I have seen images, which I've actually put up here on Loving Life TV, of suitcases from that same plane full of hundreds of millions of US dollars in suitcases. That was why the plane was held up. Nothing to do with the weapons for his security detail. It was the money laundering that was clearly happening through these suitcases full of cash. That was not talked about at all. You know, this guy, Ramaphosa, is a criminal. He's a mafia boss. That's what he is. He heads up a mafia organization called the ANC. That's who he is.
Absolutely. Look, let me put it this way, Scott. For me, nothing shocks me in this country anymore. I've seen it all, I've heard it all. So anything in that regard that presidential plan carries money, which are money laundering by virtue, is very much true. That is how all these dollars fly in and out of this country through that presidential plan.
Yeah. Because the security are not allowed to touch it.
Yes, yeah.
Now,
back to the Pala, I am saying, let's forget about what the public protector said. Let's forget about what Parliament has said in terms of the report. Bottom line is that Ramaphosa, in his own admission, he admitted to having money in foreign currency in his possession. And he admits that the amount was over the allowed limit. By virtue, he committed a crime by not declaring that money.
Exactly.
It goes further to say, even failing to report it to the police is a criminal crime. But former Director General Arthur Fraser, opened up a charge. It's probably quite a while sometime. To date, there has been no charge being brought against Ramaphosa. The question is why? Because it is clear, in terms of Section 34(1)(b), Ramaphosa can be charged for his failure not to report the crime. The Act says any amount in excess of 100,000 must be reported to the police. And he failed to do so.
Yeah.
And he failed to even report that in this country, there are foreign nationals, Chinese, which was identified and pointed out, which he also sent his crew to go in and inquire and investigate. He even failed to report them as money launderers of this country. And yet you are a president of the country who is supposed to be protecting this country, and yet you have foreign nationals that are here in this country laundering stolen money.
Well, look, I want to just cut in there because, you know, a week before, or a couple of weeks before this Pala incident happened where the money was stolen from his furniture, guess who was visiting Cape Town? Bill Gates. Remember Bill Gates? He came over to Cape Town to have that infamous little tennis match with Roger Federer. That was the whole thing. Roger Federer played Bill Gates, and it was all bullshit. But Bill Gates came in his private plane with a huge amount of cash to bribe Ramaphosa. That's a conspiracy theory, but where else did that money come from? Because Ramaphosa suggested that those millions of dollars were spent on buying buffalo from his farm, and it now turns out that's bullshit. So
That is
the
that
timing
is
of that is just extraordinary.
even there was evidence that was given by the Sudanese guy that's allegedly got
Yes,
the money.
exactly.
Even that document, you can see it's a fabricated document.
Yeah, it is totally fabricated. So,
But nobody questions that.
well, we're questioning it, and we're gonna get to the bottom of this, because I think this is gonna blow Ramaphosa right out the water. Now, tell me about Mr. Mkhabisi Jonas, the chairperson of the PIC board of directors.
This guy, he was the deputy finance minister to Pravin Gordhan. He was also the chairman of the Public Investment Corporation. A very dubious guy. A guy that came up with the most bizarre story. He went into the Gumta's house and they offered him 600 million in a black bag. What fucking black bag? Sorry for the language.
That's
what
okay.
Black bag will have 600 million? He is a mastermind behind Jacob Zuma's removal. He and Pravin Gordhan. Crooked guy that comes out with propaganda and then just get away with it. I still want to know, where did he see that 600 million rand? He was very specific. And where would that money came from? Because subsequent to that, all the Gumta's account were investigated by FIC to see if there were irregular money movement. Even those reports could not reveal where 600 million would have come out in cash. So it's either the Gumtas were manufacturing fake money in the houses. That's where, if you did see 600 million in a bag, and I don't know how you even see 600 million in a bag, even if it was in 200 notes, what size of a bag was that?
Yeah.
You know, these guys, they just play with people's emotion, and we, black people in this country, we just tend to believe any BS that comes from these guys.
Well, I can tell you now that that's changed. I can tell you the mood has changed against the bullshit that the ANC are coming out with. And I also just want to say that when it comes to South Africa, which is on a grey listing, which means that it's kind of that the world is looking at South Africa saying, you know, this is a money laundering center of the world now. If South Africa goes onto a blacklisting, that's going to have a huge impact on the rand.
Absolutely. Look, there is no two ways about South Africa going into blacklisting in terms of all the evidence that's now coming up. And if we combine the evidence between myself and the British authorities and the US, there's absolutely no getting away out of this thing. South Africa is one of the biggest money launderers in this country.
And also, can I just add to that, also involved in human trafficking with children. It's just shocking what's going on. Now, this guy here, Daniel Matiala, Chief Executive Officer, Spiderweb codename, the Iron Master. Tell me about this guy.
Well, interestingly, that we found that Dan was also part of this, by the way, but it was quite shocking. But I've had a lot of interaction. Dan Magila, as the CEO of PIC at the time, I confronted him regarding my inquiry and asked a lot of questions. I must say, Dan with me was very open. He said to me, Jeff, if you want to know about these monies, rather go to National Treasury or Finance Minister. They are the people that will tell you more or give you answers. He didn't want to get himself involved. However, I can tell you the following is that Dan Majila knows everything about these stolen monies. He knows about the transactions that happened between 2001, those amounting into trillions of rand going to various accounts. He knows about it. He has confirmed this. Obviously, he does not want to be dragged to be a witness. But what has subsequently happened, he has been now used as a scapegoat to all the wrong things that went wrong at Public Investment Corporation, which is just a tip of the iceberg of the things that he's been accused of allowed to have happened, which include the Iqbal Safes company funding of 4 billion, which is nothing compared to the amount that we're speaking about here.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so yes, Dan Matiga, we found out that he was also controlled, and he had to be controlled. If you have a
when we say controlled, we're talking about by the Rupert family.
Absolutely, the control comes from Stellenbosch.
Yeah. Okay.
And the person behind the control is the Ruperts.
Now tell me about Machepe More.
Machepe More, Chief Financial Member of the... Yeah, now I don't have much on her except for she was also brought into the team of key. These are key position people, which then whatever they do by the instruction or the advisory of coming from Stellenbosch via the economic department of Stellenbosch University.
Right. Now, should that be ABSA, not Abasa?
Again?
That member of the board of Abasa at the bottom, should that be ABSA?
At the bottom, member of the board of... Oh, no. That's the banking association of South
Africa. Okay. So she's very high up in the banking association. I got it. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about this lady, Moira Moses?
Yeah, same with her. Either than basically just being in a key position, and whatever decision and action that are taken comes from the directive of the Spiderweb.
Right. The Countess. What a great name. And this is all her little areas that she was involved in.
Yes.
GEPF Board of Trustees. Interesting. That's all part under the PIC. Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
All these people are sworn to secrecy. They will say nothing.
Yeah.
They're part of the cabal.
Now, this guy, the professor, tell me about him.
Well, see the position. Government Employees Pension Fund. It's got to be the professor because, remember I said to you, that is the institution that is being used to conceal money laundering. An institution that nobody would suspect. Now, while I'm on the government pension fund, I investigated the government pension funds since 1911. Remember, the government pension fund initially came from I think it was National Finance, NFC, but that is where government PIC originated from. So I did a reconciliation as to find out how much money would have ended up with government pension fund. So I did a reconciliation to see how much money was carried over, and I did it from 1911 to 1984. Up until 1984, there was very little money. There was in the region of, say, There was a 2 billion plus a 1 point something. So there was about, say, 3 billion carried over from 1984 being pension funds money. From 1985, then they brought in the three families' money. They combined it with the government pension fund, and then it became a huge amount. Out of the blue, it became. That is why I was able to reconcile the exact amount of the amount that was supposed to have been transferred from the old regime to the new regime to have been only 14 billion. And 14 billion was supported by the former finance minister, Mr. Ludenberg, together with his DG. That is in black and white, that the actual, government pension fund asset would have been in the region of 14 billion come after 1996. Now, if that is true, let's take away the monies of the dead people that they included there. That, and if you look at the asset today of 2.5 trillion, it is more than impossible. I don't even know what's the right word, because even impossible seems understated, that they will be sitting with such huge amount of money. So, like I said, government pension fund has been used as an institution of thieving and concealment. That is where that guy, the professor, comes.
So he's central to the whole thing.
Absolutely. Not only him, but quite a number of them.
What is he doing right now? Do you know?
Pardon?
What is he doing right now?
He's probably still there. I have not really followed it, but he's probably
well,
still
I think he might be being visited by the Scorpions, who apparently are going to be reinstituted shortly. Now, what about Ms. Adri van Niekerk, Board Secretariat, the fixer?
Yeah, okay, she's previously from APSA. She's a crucial member of the thing, and Maria's girlie, so she operates just like Maria Ramaphosa.
So she's basically just totally sold to the Ruperts.
Not only her, the entire bunch of these codename people.
Yeah. They're all lackeys for Johann Rupert.
And their handler was Trevor Manuel and Maria Ramos, the king and queen of leaves.
Yeah, the king and queen of leaves. We're going to refer to them from now on as the king and queen of leaves.
They didn't just get that name by coincidence. They got a name with the authority that they had. Let me tell you, none of them are within these structures, but they still, wherever they are, they still control this institution, this most crucial and important institution of government, which is called National Treasury. They control it. They will control it even in their graves.
Now look, just something I have to ask you. Why are the king and queen of leaves? Is a leaf like a banknote? Well, why leaves?
Well, you can POV that yourself with what leaves. That means everybody falls to the ground except them, basically.
Okay.
That means those people are just puppets, basically.
Yeah.
They are being controlled and told to do whatever, and if you don't abide, you will fall off.
Okay, now we're coming to the almost the end of this document. The spiderweb has brought back the Queen of Leaves to restructure National Treasury moving forward. Do you want to talk to this?
Well, that is where, remember now, this was getting closer to Ramaphosa's election, planned election, which was guaranteed. I mean, these people knew even before the conference, because they had put certain things in place, that Ramaphosa was definitely going to hook or crook, was going to win the election, basically. So Maria Ramos started restructuring, the national treasury, to be in line with what needs to be done from there, etc. So that is what this part is basically talking about, and it suggests who's going to go into what position at what time, basically. So they were restructuring the setup, basically, to be in line to fulfill whatever Ramaphosa's duties were and what to do.
Now, you say here, during the recent World Economic Forum in Cape Town, Nini assembled all the DDGs and chief directors from National Treasury at a Cape Town hotel for a brief meeting. The deputy minister was not part of the meeting since he was traveling to Paris. These are the outcomes of the meeting. Let's have a look. DG's position. Do you want to talk about these?
Yeah, no, there you can see. At that stage, now, I said to you, Lungisa Fuzile was scheduled to be moved to University of Stellenbosch, but that subsequently changed, and then he was given the position of the CEO or chairman of Standard Bank. Why that was done was because in 2016, that's when these stolen monies from Absa were then removed to Standard Bank. So he actually ended up being sent to Standard Bank to oversee and guard these monies and make sure that no information is leaked out here.
So who's Avril Halstead?
Where is he?
It says halfway through that page that Avril...
No, he is one of the employees that's been with Treasury. I don't know very much about it. I do know Michael Sachs. Yeah, Michael Sachs, I do know him. I had a few interaction with him. I don't know if he's still with National Treasury or...
And state-owned enterprises. Minister Nene.
Yeah, Minister Nene was fired as a result of this report because we found out that he was getting advices from Stellenbosch via Maria Ramos. So he was the reason Jacob Zuma removed him, was because of this report here.
Okay. And South African Airways, here we go. Okay, so that's GTAC again. What about Eskom? Treasury must support the appointment of Brian Molefe.
Yeah, it is. Remember, Brian Molefe was a DG at National. He was a groom boy in terms of protecting all this corruption. He was very supported by Maria and Trevor because they groomed him to be the protector and the front runner. So they supported him at one stage for him to be appointed at Eskom, because then he would protect certain things and reveal certain things. And what they didn't see coming was that Brian, instead of criticizing and blaming everything on the Gumtas, he made a U-turn and started blaming Glencore for all the and all the big companies instead. So he became a bit of a disappointment.
This is the same Glencore who were pivotal to getting Ramaphosa elected as president.
Yes.
Oh wow. This is just crazy shit. I can't believe it. No, okay.
They owned the Optimum mine that was eventually bought by the Guptas.
Yeah.
That's how the Guptas got involved with Eskom in terms of the coal supply. And the same Glencore was a company that gave Ramaphosa shares where he first opened his mining company, Shaduka.
Now, look, I just, before we go one sentence further, I just want to make it clear to everybody listening to this live stream or this video after the live stream that Jeff has offered this information to the fake legacy media in South Africa, and they have refused to even entertain it. Am I correct?
Well, interestingly, let me tell you, I've tried every minute. I know these investigative journalists by name.
Yeah.
And I've confronted them, given them the information. They just said, no, we're not interested. There is this other channel called Special Assignment. What is it called? I sent all the information, and they came back to me and said, with the implication of people in such high profile, they would not be able to do any documentary on this. They turned me down blank. So basically, you have in South Africa, you have mainstream media, including broadcasting institutions that would not broadcast or publish anything that implicate certain elite in this country, who are by virtue the owners of these institutions, the mainstream media.
Well, the Ruperts would have a controlling interest on those. So we're talking about like Enco, which is run by the Ruperts. We're talking about the South African Broadcasting Corporation. We're talking about Mail and Guardian. We're talking about all these different online media who wouldn't touch this because it might impact their bottom line, because the government would then say, middle finger to you, we're not going to pay you one more cent in advertising. That's really what we're talking about, isn't it?
That's what it builds to. And strangely enough, SABC published or broadcasted a bit about.
Yes, I actually put that up in the first video. Yes.
Yes, about my claim, and
yes,
including the government pension funds of the TBC state. And I was actually surprised because somebody called me and said, hey, did you see something on SABC? I said, what? He said, well, they mentioned your name there. They spoke about your claim, etc. Then I listened to that YouTube, and it was done by Leanne Manas. And
yes,
she was quite spot on in what she reported. I was actually shocked that she actually did that because nobody's done that before. But I found a bit of an error in what she said. She said in the interview, she said, but she mentioned the 1.35 trillion being a big, huge claim, biggest ever in South Africa, which is true.
Yeah.
But she mentioned that in 2022 or 21, there was a court ruling that made a ruling after, evaluating the facts and made a ruling. Yes, now I want to talk about that ruling because that was a misconception.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Suti status of the case is currently before the Bloemfontein Appeals Court. We are appealing a judgment that was issued on the 6th of October 2022. A very dubious, biased, pattern error judgment that said in order for us to be successful with a claim, we need to first challenge the constitutionality of the legislation. That is That is wrong in fact and in law, because to be quite honest with you, that is why I took so long from 2011 to eventually lodge a claim in 2019, because I knew there were certain part of the legislation that first needed to be challenged. And one of the last part that needed to be challenged was the prejudice legislation on Regulation 3, which forbidden the money from being paid to a Lesotho citizen. I challenged that in 2018 and subsequently was granted exemption against the people of Lesotho, Namibia, and Swaziland, because they were part of the common monetary area, which should have never been. There should have been no restriction in terms of moving money to those countries. But Tito Mboweni was then finance minister. He granted me the exemption that I needed. That is why I only had to file the court papers after that exemption was being granted.
Yeah.
So what the Pretoria High Court evaluated was two things. There were two exceptions. Our exceptions were raised on the basis that our particulars of claim did not actually disclose the course of action, which was wrong. It's a wrong allegation, because our particulars of claim is very crystal clear. It says my client's money after 1995 June, it was invested into government bond after being retained in special restricted account, and then those bonds were invested for over 25 years to 2011, and as a result, the proceeds of the investment was 1.35 trillion. So my particulars of claim is very crystal clear, and that's all that we had to disclose in our particulars of claim. So for her to say our particulars of claim does not disclose a cause of action is wrong in fact and in law. That is what we are challenging, and we hope. We just filed the last bit of papers on Friday, so we're hoping that we're going to have that reverse. Once we do have that reverse, I am 100% sure that APSA and PIC will start talking settlement, because they don't have any defense in this matter. And if, for whatever reason, we continue to have this unbiasedness of the judicial system, we do have a recourse to take the matter to international level that will be taking it to the U.S., which is the dispute settlement center for the bilateral investment treaties, of which this matter falls part of, because there is a bilateral investment treaty signed between Lesotho, South Africa, and Britain, which are the three countries implicated. So I want to categorically say, for those that are skeptic about the success or the unsuccess of this claim, I will win this case. There is no way that they can defend it.
No, hang on. Jeff, if you win this case, South Africa will be blacklisted in the banking system, which means the rand is going to go where the Zim dollar went. It's people won't trust the rand, they won't trust the country. It's all over Red Rover, isn't it?
Absolutely, but here's the point, Scott. I am still saying they could save this blacklisting of this country.
Yeah.
By simply doing the right thing, pay the people's money back. Because the strength of really putting South Africa into a blacklisting is dependent on my submission.
Yeah.
And I had made the submission to both the US and the UK. I withdrew it because of the fear of taking this country down. And I thought, let me give these people a chance to do the right thing. And I'm still saying, the information that I have, which I can reshare with the US and the UK, which are the two countries that will take South Africa down in terms of money laundering, I can still withhold. they have very limited time. Settle my claim, or I will pull the last trigger. And that means, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether I go down with the country, but we all go down. So they have the power to still save this country. And I further said that paying the Houthis money will not have the economy. In fact, it will boost the economy of this country, because we have no intention of moving this money out of South Africa. We intend to keep it invested. There will be a lot of beneficiaries who are all going to get business. So the economy would boost.
Can I ask you? Can I ask you something? And look, this is just my own personal perspective, Jeff. Is that if let's say this turns around in the favor of the Houthis, can they put 10% of that money towards the poor and the impoverished?
Absolutely. Let me put it to you. Currently, there is not a 10%, there's a 20%. And there is a further 40% to be given to government to address the energy crisis in this country.
Wow.
When I made the generous gesture proposal, they actually laughed at me because they thought, you're not going to get the money anyway, so you cannot be making these offers. But they were wrong, let me tell you that. They thought I would not get it. And I'm telling you now in this interview, I am going to get this money paid.
So 40% of 1.35 trillion would pay off Eskom's debt.
Absolutely. I offered it specifically for that.
And you've got ANC people, the mafia, including Maria Ramos, whose page is up there right now on the screen, who are basically stonewalling this happening.
Absolutely. I've made it to them. I included Absa, who is part and parcel of the concert. I said, this is what we intend to do. We are intending to do good in this country. And the country would lose nothing. All that will happen is that the ownership of the money would go to the rightful owners. Look, that's all that's going to change.
I have to say, from this discussion we've had, for tonight's live stream, is that if you think of a spider web, okay, we're talking about Project Spiderweb. If you think of a spider web, the deadly spider that's sort of like patrolling the spider web is Maria Ramos, isn't it?
Absolutely. Maria Ramos is the key person. She is the handler of all of them.
Working for the Ruperts.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Remember the marriage between her and Trevor?
Yeah.
Was planned by the Ruperts, was funded by the Ruperts. So it is a couple match made in hell. In hell meaning Stellenbosch, Rupert territory.
So the bottom line is there is a Stellenbosch mafia. There is white monopoly capital, but it's not white population. It's just like the ultra wealthy families like the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers. That's it. So when Julius Malema says, "Oh, white monopoly capital," what he's talking about is Johann Rupert and Nicky Oppenheimer. That's what he's talking about. No one else. Or the rest of the white population are just victims.
Yeah, in general, when we refer to white monopoly capital, that refers to the big corporate companies in this country, which are by virtue owned by the people we've just mentioned, period.
Yeah. Well, look, I would love to have Johann Rupert on a live stream on Loving Life TV. I'm not going to hold my breath because I think he's too important to come on to lowlylovinglifetv.com. But guess what, Mr. Rupert? We're going to continue to expose what you're up to. And I've got to tell you, Jeff, that I've had some very interesting emails, like the guy from Glencore, who are coming out of the woodwork, and they've had enough. They're ready to spill the beans, and I think we're just starting to move into an era where these corporate mafiosa, like the Rupert family, are going to be exposed for what they are, and that is thieves, common thieves, those ones that you find running around the streets like rats. That's what they are, and they're stealing from people who are basically impoverished to meet their own political aims and their own power-based aims. I mean, these guys are disgusting. They stink. I mean, they just they smell. They just. I can't put words together for them. They're scum. They're scum. That's all I can say.
They are thieves, thieving on an industrial scale, Scott. That is the big corporate, empowered,
and yet the
ANC government.
Yeah, but the fake legacy media would have you believe that they are philanthropists and they're doing everything they can to help South Africa, and that's a load of crap because they basically run the entire show. That's
a lot of crap indeed, because they have billions of stolen money given to them.
Yeah.
They don't even create enough employment in this country. That is why this country has got such a high level of employment.
Yeah.
They should have at least used that money to create jobs.
Mate, look, I'm going to wrap up this live stream. We're going to have another one after this one, but is there something you'd like to say to people just in wrapping up this live stream?
Well, Scott, I can say nothing. It is up to your viewers and your listeners to, they have heard the truth, nothing but the truth, to make up their own minds. And I think the time has.
Sorry, Jeff, could you just repeat that?
Yeah, and I believe the time is now more than ever for every South African citizen to stand up united, to remove this evil ANC government by virtue stopping this manipulation of the big corporate, of which the ANC is in collude and in concert with, which does not benefit any of the citizens of this country and only benefit themselves.
Yeah. Look, I totally, we're on the same page. We're like two peas in the pod. I've been following what's going on in South Africa from overseas, as you know, for years now. And it's because I'm overseas I can speak openly like this and publish this shit. Because if this was published by one of the alternative media companies in South Africa, it would be resulting in probably them being imprisoned for a number of years under the new censorship laws that they're bringing out. So, you know, I'm just delighted to get the truth out there. And look, I'll be in touch, Jeff, in the near future. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. And
my pleasure, Scott.
And look, we'll catch up very soon.
Thank you very much, Scott. You keep well.
Okay. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, man. Bye.
Bye for now. All right, guys. That was my live stream with. Hang on, let me just shut this down. Okay, here we go. Gone. Okay. That was my live stream with Jeff Koorbanally. What an amazing man. I mean, all we do is put the information out there. You've seen the documents, CR17, bank statements, which if you go to lovinglifetv.com, you'll be able to download those statements from not only the forum in perpetuity, but at the moment it's linked on the home page where you've got a link to the actual CR17 bank statements where Ramaphosa, funded by the Ruperts and by people like Glencore, stole the presidency under this completely corrupted system. I'm going to wrap this up. Please share this video widely with your friends and family and everybody else who might have a completely misconceived perception of what's going on in South Africa. You've got to understand that South Africa is captured. It's owned by the Rupert family. It's owned by the Stellenbosch mafia. That's who owns you if you live in South Africa. And your vote when it comes to 2024, if you vote the ANC back in, will be going straight in the trash can. And the same applies to the Democratic Alliance, and the same applies to the economic freedom fighters. You've got to go for parties who are not totally screwed over by the Rupert family and by the white monopoly capital. People like the Freedom Front Plus, and of course the African Christian Democratic Party, ACDP. You got to start looking after your own interests, because all that these mafiosos are doing are looking after their own. And having said that, because we are a Christian channel, I'm going to go out with Op ons rots. And yes, it is in Afrikaans. And have a great evening. And don't forget, tomorrow night we've got another live stream. We're actually going to be talking about the welfare of children in South Africa. And this is a huge issue because of the amount of money that's been stolen by the ANC government and by these billionaires like the Ruperts, with absolutely no consideration to the future of the children living in poverty. That's a complete misnomer, which you will not hear on the fake mainstream media. All right, let's get Op ons rots on and have a great evening. And just before I go, thanks to the mods for the great job that you guys do on the side chat there. Have a great evening, and please make sure you register on lovinglifetv.com to be kept informed, because we got some big live streams coming up. Cheers, guys. Bye for now.
Ons loop hand aan hand op goue warm sand, so baie wat ek wil hê, so baie dit brand. Ek staan op my rots met golwe wat bots. Ons het geen vrees, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien al die planne van goddelose manne. Ons weet hulle gaan nie wen nie. Dis geskryf soos 'n duif. Ons sal wen, aanhou glo, want hy is in beheer. Baie sterk, dis kragte wat werk. Die gevoel in my hart, dis vrees wat wil brand. Ons is boere met trots, met my hand teen my bors. Ons ken geen vrees, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien al die planne van goddeloze manne. Ons weet hulle gaan nie wen nie. Dis geskryf soos 'n duif. Ons sal wen, aanhou glo, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien wat gebeur. Die leuen sal ons nie steen. Kom staan nog 'n keer. Ek is stil, want ek weet hy is in beheer. Ons sien al die planne van goddeloze manne. Ons weet hulle gaan nie wen nie. Dis geskryf soos 'n duif. Ons sal wen, aanhou glo, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien al die planne van goddeloze manne. Ons weet hulle gaan nie wen nie. Dis geskryf soos 'n duif. Ons sal wen, aanhou glo, want hy is in beheer.